Hi, I'm Valleri Crabtree, and I'm a candidate for the United States House of Representatives, Florida Congressional District 9. This is the third video that we've made. The first video talked about our purple approach to problem solving, where we rely on collaboration. Our second video talked about structural changes which we believe are so important to be made in Washington, such as term limits. This video talks about a very serious problem that affects not only Florida Congressional District 9, but the entire United States. That is the number of adults that we have that are incarcerated in our prisons and in our jails. You may not be aware of this, but 5% of the world's population is in the United States. But 25% of the world's prison population is in the United States. In fact is, over 2.2 million adults are incarcerated in our jails and in our prisons. I think this is a serious problem, and I'll bet you do too, and we need to do something about it. So as a result, we have several proposals that I would like to share with you. The first one is arrest reform. And let me define for you what I believe arrest reform means. First, it only applies to first-time offenders. Only first-time offenders. Secondly, arrest reform is going to depend upon us having adequate housing for those who are homeless, having drug rehabilitation centers for those with substance abuse problems, and having proper mental health facilities for those that do have mental health issues. It also requires that our law enforcement officials, our police officers, be empowered and educated so that when someone is detained, they can sort out what that issue is with that person who is being detained. If that person has a substance abuse problem, then they can send that person to the proper facility, as opposed to sending that person into the system, arresting that person, sending them, having them booked, maybe eventually that person is convicted, then they're sent to prison, then they're part of that, potentially part of that revolving door that is causing so many people to commit crimes over and over and over again and never get a chance to escape from the system. We need to help people, not punish them. Along with this, we need to have a federal statute, a new federal statute that requires that employers, before they use a criteria of a conviction of a misdemeanor or a felony, be able to show that there's a rational relationship between that misdemeanor and that felony to the job that they are looking to fill. All too often, what employers will do will say, well, you have a conviction here, I'm not hiring you. And I just don't think that's right. I think we need to be able to have employers show that there is a relationship between the job description and the misdemeanor or the felony that a person has been convicted of that makes them ineligible for that job. Oftentimes, after someone has served their time in prison, they don't get involved in the revolving door. In fact, they do become constructive members of our society. I think that after 5 years, after being released from their prison term or their jail term, they should be able to have their records sealed. But this should be provisional, so that if they would offend again in the future, that record could be unsealed. But if they don't, then that record is sealed after 5 years after they are released from serving their time. You know, sort of related to that is the question of disenfranchisement. I believe that once someone has served their time, they should not be denied the right to vote. Once you have completed your sentence, simply because you've committed a felony, that should not in any way affect your ability to become a voting citizen after you've served your time. So I am completely against any law that would cause someone to be disenfranchised after they have served their time in prison. I also believe that we should not be housing young people with adult offenders. When a young person commits that first crime, they too, just like I've mentioned earlier with adults, they too should be given the opportunity when they are first detained to have that issue sorted out for them too. They should go into counseling. Perhaps the issue is drug abuse. Perhaps the issue is something else. Perhaps they have some dynamics in their home life that need to be addressed. Whatever that is, we should give that young person the opportunity to start fresh again. So first-time young offenders should have that opportunity, and even if it turns out that they are arrested and are put into the system, they absolutely should not be housed with adult offenders. I believe that prisons are a responsibility of the public. We should not have private, for-profit prisons. And finally, we should remove minimum mandatory prison sentences. You know, when we pass a statute, those are words on a piece of paper. And they may sound good in concept, but they may not work very well in a particular set of facts. The judge, however, is there listening to those facts. The judge can hear whether there are aggravating circumstances which should cause a more severe penalty, or whether there are mitigating circumstances which should result in a lesser sentence. We should allow judges to do that. We need to get rid of minimum mandatory sentences, especially when we're dealing with non-violent crimes or situations where there are substance abuse issues involved. If you would like to read more about our ideas, you can go to www.crabtreeforcongress.com. You can also visit our Facebook page at Crabtree for Congress. I'm Valleri Crabtree, and I approved this message. Thank you very much for listening. Bye-bye.